Welcome to Affording College with Aaron Green, founder and president of College Liftoff.
So thanks, Deep Throated Guy. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit more about degree sets and majors and careers and how they kind of correlate and how we really go about this career development process with our high school kids. And again, this is just a little bit of insight into thinking my kid has interests in this or that. And again, I think I've said this before, but most students walk in our door and know doctor, teacher, nurse, my parents do X. And that's really the extent of the work world that they know. But today, we're going to break down another set of degrees that look pretty similar and how to actually think about them in context of industry. So the degree sets are going to be operations management as well, logistics, supply chain management, and from the engineering side, industrial systems engineering. So first of all, those are actually from two different categories. One is from the technical category, one is from the business category, but they converge like a lot of degrees do. And they actually talk about things they actually deal with things, the same things, but from two different perspectives. So let's start with the business side, the operations, logistics, supply chain management. So with those degrees, those are a part of that whole operations bubble where you're actually working on a business. So think of the operations management side of things as like somebody in your world or whatever you do for a living that's actually doing the actual work of the business or managing it. So the other bubbles that exist in the business world are like the HR bubble, which actually has more to do with education. So if you ever really have an HR management background or you're trying to create an HR management degree for a school that doesn't have that specific specialty, what you do is you take a business administration degree and you take a minor in education. That's how you actually get HR management. That's one bubble. Then you have the money bubble, which is accounting and finance, and that's how you treat money from the front end when you actually get it, and the back end, how do you account for it? Then you have the marketing bubble, which is more of the sales and marketing of a company. And then you have the operations bubble. So the operations folks and the operations management are actually how do you actually do the business, whatever that may be. Those are built for kids that typically have more of a hands-on driven aspect for themselves. Think more logically, more mathematically typically, but they're not so calculus heavy as they are statistics heavy. How do you make the differences there? Think about actually the root of algebra and geometry. So those are two different maths, where algebra is a lot more logical, and a lot of students here will describe it as, I really like being able to find one exact concrete answer after doing all of this particular work. Where geometry is a lot more abstract. You can have multiple answers for the same problem. Logistics, operations management particularly go down that route. The logistics side of a company is how do you actually make things work? That's going to go back to the supply chain management aspect too. So let's paint a picture. Let's say you're making a widget. Let's say you're making a widget in China. You're actually having it manufactured there. Now, you're getting ready to sell it to every target in this country. So the logistics of it is that you have to be able to get the widget made, and then you have to supply it to every target around the country. The supply chain management of that, how you actually supply this, you have to take a ship, load those goods up from China, send it to the coast of California where it actually gets dropped off. Then it gets distributed to every single distribution center in Target's jurisdiction all over the country. And then from there, it probably has to go from those distribution centers to 10 different Targets. Here's the catch of it all. You have to make sure it all shows up, that it's all there at the same exact time, because when the marketing team for Target releases the weekly brochure or whatnot, of the weekly paper on what's for sale, they can't do one different from Spokane, Washington than they do in Miami, Florida. So they all have to show up at the same time. Here's the other catch of it, and this is something else the operations and logistics side of it have to do, is they actually have to price the widget, because there's a manufacturing cost, but there's also a shipping cost. But the shipping cost fluctuates between Spokane and Miami. I mean, if you're landing San Diego, it costs a heck of a lot more to ship it to Miami, but you still have to charge the same price for the widget. But imagine they like it a lot more in Miami or in Winston-Salem than they do in Spokane. So you have to constantly keep supplying it there anyway. So how do you do all of this? How do you take all of those operational components, logistically lay them out, and then actively supply them? That's how those degrees are set. And that's where, when we look at a student, we want to know their own interest DNA to see how do they correlate to those particular degree sets. Because on the other side of this, you have industrial systems and engineering, which can also be called industrial engineering as well. They're typically doing something very close to what the operations and logistics folks are doing. In fact, they even handle a little bit of the business side themselves. But they're the ones who are actively working in the facilities to make sure that these transitions actually happen. So you could think of a distribution center where you get in a truckload of the widget that you've now made, but of course, they've got 1,000 different things they sell at Target. So they're the ones that are actually making sure that the proper supplies are being sent to the particular stores that actually need that particular one. So again, maybe they really like the widget in Winston-Salem, but really it's maybe 3 out of the 10 stores that really like it, not the other 7. So somebody's got to make sure that that store gets properly supplied with not just your widget, but the thousands of other goods in the right measurable as well. The other side of what industrial systems engineers do, think of manufacturing a car. Actually, when you're making a car, you actually have to take it from the start of the manufacturing process to the point where it drives off the assembly line. What industrial systems do at their core is they actually create that entire process, utilizing not just humans, but robotics, and how to mix them in the best ratios and the best ways to get the most out of both. So a lot of things that robots do a lot better than we do. There's still a lot of things that we do that are a lot better than robots. So when you're making a car, you have to make sure that that process is smooth all the way through and there's no hiccups in the lines. But also more than anything, you have to make sure that they're all done perfectly. That being said, there's still going to be some hiccups. You're always going to have a part here and there that's not right. But the industrial engineer's goal in utilizing people and robotics and creating an assembly line, literally creating it, how can I make sure that the process is smooth and the product is always right in the end? That's their job. Plus, they do have a little bit of a touch in robotics as well. They do know how to work on the robotics that they're actually putting into action, or at least have some idea about what's going on with it. If you ever want a good example of industrial systems in engineering, watch the show How It's Made. That's literally an industrial systems job, is to make sure that the whole process of whatever it is they're making in that show happens from the start of it to the end of it. So that's how those degree sets kind of work. They converge in the fact that they're dealing with the supplying of goods and the operations of a company that actually make and produce and sell. They're actually dealing with the operations and logistics of a company where they're making and supplying whatever it is that the company does. Then it gets handed over to marketing and sales to make sure it actually gets sold.
College Liftoff can help empower you to make college affordable for your student. If you want to learn more about your options, Aaron will be responding directly to your emails. Email him a question at aaron@collegeliftoff.com. Thanks for listening to Affording College with Aaron Green of College Liftoff. If you'd like more information, visit collegeliftoff.com.
Circle270media.com